As I mentioned, I'll be out next week. A lot of stuff going on. Some of it tied to the hemophilia community, and it starts this weekend. And the HFA, Hemophilia Federation of America, is having their national convention here in St. Louis, and it actually started yesterday, but we'll get down there this weekend, and obviously very much involved because of Liam's diagnosis at birth, my 5-year-old having that bleeding disorder. But it was also an opportunity to talk a little bit about it because inevitably, and as we bring in Richard Pizzillo, who is from HFA, he is the communications director. Rich, welcome to the program. Welcome to St. Louis.
Hey, John, thank you so much. It's great to be here in St. Louis. We are so excited to be here.
I was going to start saying this without you, and I thought I want to bring you in first because I'm sure you hear this even more than me. But when you mentioned hemophilia and the bleeding disorder, if anybody has any, not even knowledge, but familiar with the term, the first thing inevitably they will say, is that where your son cuts himself and he bleeds to death?
Yeah.
So obviously a lot of work to be done by the community just to educate people that that's not even close.
Yeah, you are absolutely right. There's a lot of stigma that's associated with having hemophilia and other bleeding disorders, and so often patients are being told, when you get a paper cut, does that mean that you're going to bleed to death, or are you part of the royalty family? Usually the two things, and a lot of people think that you bleed faster, but you actually bleed longer, and you're not going to gush blood externally either. So there's a lot of misconceptions because, we don't talk about it a lot. Whether it's on TV or movies, it's just not talked about, and it's so rare that I think these misconceptions still continue in 2015.
Well, I think we don't talk about it a lot because there's probably even more people that still enjoy Adam Sandler movies. Just to give you an idea of how small the community is, at last check, the number of diagnosed hemophiliacs in the United States is only 18,000?
Yeah, around that, 20,000. So it's rare.
So, I don't blame society at large for not having an understanding, but certainly we see opportunities to not only educate through appearances by HFA here in town this weekend, but also, and this sucks, a lot of your job is going out and correcting incorrect and improper information. And I have been watching this show on ABC, Ryan Phillippe, who's a crappy actor to begin with. I don't know why I'm watching this show. And in one of these bizarre plot twists, some kid, they say, has hemophilia, and some guy just throws out, well, that's the dirty byproduct of what happens with incest. And then, let's go get lunch, Dave. And that's all they said about it, and on with they went. And I had to, rewind it 3 times. I'm like, did they just say that on national TV?
Yeah, you and I both. I mean, I think the entire hemophilia community really came together well. I mean, it epitomized the definition of what advocacy is and being an advocate. The actual quote was a nasty byproduct of incest, end quote. And it really... it's completely inaccurate. B, it's suggesting that, hemophilia is spread by incest or caused by incest, which is absolutely inaccurate and appalling. It's a genetic disorder. You are born with it. It is passed. About 30% of patients have spontaneous mutations, but by no means is there anything that has to do with incest.
But I've heard nothing in the mainstream media calling ABC to task saying, correct this. Had they say, well, little Jimmy had Down syndrome and, that's the result of him sleeping with his sister, there would have been massive outrage.
I absolutely agree with you. We have tried as a national organization to contact ABC. I will say that when ABC re-aired that episode, they did take out that line specifically, but there was no apology. There was no reach out. There was no even acknowledgement. We did a campaign along with the National Hemophilia Foundation, local member organizations, including Gateway Hemophilia Association, to push community members to go to their Facebook page, to push to contact the producers, and there's been no attempt to even apologize. We've been told that we should go to their sponsors and try reaching out to their sponsors to see if they would reach out. But I think it is, it's very disturbing because for a small community, it's just adding to the ignorance that is out there about how this is passed. And I think at the bare minimum, an apology would go a long way with our small community.
Other than spontaneous bleeds and challenges in clotting, the challenges that face families with hemophilia are the medication and the factors that are out there. And I know for us, people are blown away when I tell them that our son's medicine is about $20,000 a month.
Uh-huh.
And there is a big issue with insurance companies because, not to bore people with details, they classify drugs in certain tiers and categories. And insurance companies can walk away from Tier 4 medications or not cover as much as Tier 4. And guess what is in that Tier 4? Factor and other medications for people that have these diseases. Talk about what you guys are doing to get legislation changed.
Sure. No, absolutely. You hit the nail on the head. Hemophilia is one of the most expensive chronic conditions to have per patient. I think we get swallowed out and diluted a little bit when you look at national organizations, cancer, diabetes, because there's so many more people. When you look at the overall cost, we get drowned out. But per patient, hemophilia is right at the top. And we're seeing on a national level and on a local level that a lot of clotting factor is indeed being placed into Tier 4, Tier 5, Tier 6, and that's the co-insurance. So in your case, $20,000 a month, if you had a 20% copayment, how could you possibly afford that just to keep your child safe and your child healthy? And what we're doing on a national level is pushing for federal legislation. There's been a bill that has been introduced in the House of Representatives. Currently there's no Senate bill for that, but we're also working with our member organizations to push legislation on a local level. Because it's probably going to be one of those things where it may not pass at a federal level, but it could be passed on a local level. Maryland, New York, there have been other states that have been able to push to say that if clotting factor and other medications, specialty medications, are put into specialty tiers, Tier 4, Tier 5, et cetera, that there will be $100 max a month. So it's not a co-insurance. So it's kind of a twofold. It's a push federally, and then it's a push locally as well.
Those of us in the community certainly understand it. We know about the bill. We've reached out to our legislators. They're very well aware of who we are, my wife in particular, along with people like Bridget Tyree, the executive director of Gateway Hemophilia, who I believe is hanging out in the wings there, and wanted to give her a quick shout-out. But to the people that want to see wrongs righted, that are interested in the political process, want to get involved and lobby and stand up for things that need to be straightened out and may not be directly affected, what would you recommend the community do at large to help these things along?
Well, I think what I would recommend is exactly why we're here in St. Louis, to be involved. Our theme for this year is be involved, ask questions, take action. That we are a small community, and whether you're 16 years old or 26 or 36, 46, et cetera, that being involved, we need more voices. And it's not just the voice of the patient, it's the voice of the parents, the voice of the neighbors, it's the voice of cousins, et cetera. But I think it really comes down to us. And I think it dovetails into our history as well. It's something that's not talked about either as much, is that when you look back at the 1980s, the hemophilia community was devastated by HIV and hepatitis C. That, the hemophilia community was the number one community that the contaminated blood, wiped out. I mean, there is an entire generation that is not here anymore. And when you look back 30, 40 years later, we talk about it, but as time goes on, it's part of the history book. But history, not to say will repeat itself, but we need to learn from it. And the legislation that was passed at the time, the Ricky Ray legislation, where the government took accountability, which they did. It's only happened 3 times in America's history where the government took accountability for a mistake on their part. And it is a mistake because that's what they called it, and let the blood supply get contaminated. And that was because of advocates, of coming together, grassroots organizations. I think that's what we need now. We need a stronger presence inside and outside of our community to lobby for these efforts. Because hemophilia is not the only one being placed in specialty cares. There are so many other rare chronic conditions that have expensive, medications that are life-saving, that are also being put. So, we try to band together, stronger as an army when you have more to go to, whether it's the local or the federal reps. But I would say, as cliche as it sounds, it's being involved, coming to meetings like what HFA is having, coming to the local Gateway Association meeting, being involved in social media, that you can make a difference.
Well, great work you guys do at HFA. We'll be seeing you over the weekend. HemophiliaFed.org, HemophiliaFed.org for more information. Some good stuff on the site. Richard Pizzilla joins us, and I will see you, I'm sure, as early as tonight. Thanks for making time.
Great.
Sorry.
Thank you so much for the time. Really appreciate it.
Sorry to tear you away and tell Bridget, sorry we didn't get her on the air, but she forced herself on the air anytime she wants to. And he had talked about that period in the 1980s where a generation was wiped out. And think about it. I mean, these were people that, because of excessive bleeding, because an inability to clot, needed to often get transfusions and needed blood byproducts to fix those things. And in the early AIDS epidemic, they could not or did not properly screen these blood banks. So what happened was a lot of these people that had bleeding disorders contracted AIDS and HIV, and it killed 10,000 people. There is a wonderful documentary about this period and what happened subsequently called Bad Blood. And if you have an opportunity to see it, it really will open your eyes. But thanks to them for joining us. And sorry, it was kind of self-serving, but, I just think the more information you can have going through your life, the stronger you'll become.